Good morning, or I should rather say good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Breakfast with Relog. Today we are doing it in the afternoon. We thought end of the year, everybody's had a long year, and we'll give you an excuse to spend a little bit of time with us in the afternoon. We're rather excited about this Breakfast with Relog. It's part one of three, where we're talking about maximizing your operations, future-proofing of your software journey. As we go through the journey with customers, we find that the challenges we face many times is the journey that was taken on selecting software or when to select the right software. I'm very excited to have a few guests with me today. We have got Pierre and Jaco from Fiskal, as well as Sia from Strategico, who offers the Bob product. And we've also got Kobus from Relog talking to the first part of our presentation. Let me just press the right buttons. So we're going to ask Kobus to start our journey and talk about first part, which is software. Hello, Kobus. Welcome. And then after that, we will have Fiskal, Pierre, as well as Jaco talking to us, and then Strategico from there. Right, I'm going to stop sharing and allow Kobus to do his thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Injo.
Pleasure.
Right. My screen should be being shared at the moment. Please confirm. Can you see the screen, MJ?
Yes, you're good to go. Just a short reminder to everybody, there is a Q&A button at the top of the screen. Please feel free to pop in some questions. We hope to answer those for you within the premise of the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you spending your last hour and your last week with us. So I've been given the first slot of today's discussion with the aim to guide us into a conversation of setting yourself up for future success by helping you with your software journey. So there's a few topics that I would like to go through today. I'll try and keep it short to give the rest of our speakers a bit more time for their sessions. So to start off with is the first section on change is difficult. Get it right up front. Now, there are a few key elements in a business's operational setup that are typically very difficult to change once they've been set into place. And for this reason, what we've found is that it is very important to understand these elements up front and then to make the right decisions up front, because you cannot change these later on in an economical way in doing so. So one of the elements is the location of your facility. Make sure you understand where your market is, where you want to be, what's your future plan, and then access to your site, your building, the different elements within your operation, be it the dock doors, be it the access to the site, be it the different equipment and process you have inside, but also the building itself, the infrastructure of that. You cannot change the floor if you're operational in that building. You cannot change the roof if you're operational inside. It's costly to change doors. It's costly to add a platform. There's different elements that's very difficult to change up front. But also, a software element that's also difficult to change is, of course, the software elements that you use in your operation, and be that the ERP, the IMS, or the WMS system that you use. We found it time and time again that software solutions that's selected up front in a business's life cycle is that process or that software is then carried through the years, year after year, a can that's kicked down the road until someone else then needs to make a final decision on changing the software to better support the operation or the volumes that we need to push through that operation. So just get to the next slide. Of course, in all of these four elements, just a bit of a shameless plug, of course, is Relog is able to assist with all of these four elements. Over the years, we have dealt with numerous projects in all of these elements where we've assisted clients in developing supply chain strategies, network modeling, understanding where the center of market is, assisting with site development plans, operational designs, and the likes, and also then, of course, getting to that building element, writing the building specification documents, working with the professional teams, getting the equipment specification together, and assisting our clients with the procurement and the enablement of that solution that we've developed. But also the ERP, the IMS, and the WMS, they are all, to an extent, driven by the three preceding elements. Is your location, your building access, and your building structure. They all have an impact on your system functionality that you require. Now, of course, your system shouldn't always be limited by these elements, but they do influence that element. So it's important to understand those three and the solution that's developed for your operation that actually takes into account all of these elements together to give you a holistic solution and something that is more sustainable than just focusing on one of the three elements or a few of those elements. Moving to the next slide. So many times we found after the initial review and playback of a client's data, we've heard the phrase from clients saying, but we thought the data would be good enough. And this, of course, refers to the quality and the completeness of the data that we receive. We feel that there's sometimes quite a misconception and a misconception in most companies about the quality, the accuracy, and the accessibility of the data. And it tends to be because the people or the people that we deal with in the management team or the project team are typically a bit more divorced from the data, or they don't understand the data or the importance of the data quality necessarily. And this misconception is typically rooted in the initial inventory management or inventory control software that was put into place at the start of a business's journey. And that setup of the data is carried through the business as the business grows and matures into the next level of their software journey. And it's understandable why a basic setup is implemented right at the start of a business's journey and it continues through. Is the business owner or the initial management team, they're not subject matters in data control and inventory control and warehouse control systems. They're focused on building the brand, building volume, getting customers, getting that next store, getting that next deal. And typically at the start of a customer's journey is they tend to either have a very colorful but very complex Excel program or Excel workbook that we've all seen and we've all dealt with before, or they tend to use the built-in default inventory management system that forms part of the online platform for e-commerce, or maybe a very basic WMS or inventory control system that they've somehow got through Google and they've implemented. So they're not always great. There is benefits in having these basic setups, but it doesn't set you up for your future success. So a good inventory control system will provide you with better visibility over your stock, which is very critical in any operation. It will increase your stock accuracy, understanding where your stock is and what store is it and where in the DC is it. Is it at the supplier? Is it the vendor? Is it at my manufacturer? It also allows you to have better control over your operations, like right from the beginning of raising the PO, receiving the product, through processing, through picking, through storage, all the way to dispatch. It just allows you to have a better control over that end-to-end process. Now, our aim for today's discussion is to highlight the importance and the benefits of having a good inventory control system in place and help you understand. I'll give you a bit more insights, and Fiskal and Strategico will do this following me, and helping you make your decision on your first non-Excel based software solution. So the data, well, I've mentioned data quite a few times now. Client data is very, very important for what we do at Relog. All of the data that we get from clients is typically sourced from various data sources. It's all collated and sent to us. We work through the process of acquiring the data, validating it, and playing it back to the clients. After a sign-off and agreement on the data, we then go into a phase where we do a bunch of data modeling. And in that left block, you can see the different types of modeling that we do, and it's all different for the different types of projects that we have. But that age-old thing that I think we've all came across is garbage in, garbage out. If you have garbage information coming into your models, it makes it very difficult for the models to either reflect the as-is business or give you an insight into what the business could be like as soon as I try and make certain adjustments to the variables that I have in my data model. So all of those data models, after we've developed all of them and we all have a better gut feeling and idea what it is, that all then feeds into our design process. We live in an economy at the moment where we can't just make decisions based on gut feel. You can't just go off on a whim. You need to make your decisions on the back of a good data model and good data analysis. So again, garbage in, garbage out. If I get bad information in, the designs I'm going to develop will still be as per the design and it will work, but it won't be as sustainable, as effective as, or as long, or won't have the longevity of a fully a proper model that would have worked on a good quality set of data. On this slide, what we've tried to do is just highlight or try and illustrate a typical software journey that a client would go through based on the size of the business. Now, a startup business, my wife and I, we also have a small little startup side hustle that came from COVID, and that's everything is run through Excel. We've all been there. We've all started something in Excel. But as the business grows and gets more complex over time in volume, in a wider SKU range, more customers, more stores, different suppliers, the business becomes more complex, and you get to a point where your colorful and complex Excel model is no longer applicable or no longer able to provide you with the support that you need in your business. And from there, you will then start to either find a dedicated inventory control, inventory management system. And on top of that, you can then start to add on specialist elements, be that a point of sale element, be it an e-commerce platform. You can also then at some point decide to get a dedicated warehouse management system. There's different elements that you can add to it. And as your business grows from a startup through to a super company, you will grow your business and the complexity of those systems. Now, the three companies that we have in today's discussion, we can all help you throughout this journey, of course. And since this is just part one of 3 webinars, today we have Strategico and Fiskal in here that can assist most companies from a small, medium, and large sizes. Just go to, there was one more to get to the next one. So of course, there's different scenarios for different companies, and you'll have different needs at different times in your business depending on the complexity and the type of business that you run. So it's not a cookie cutter solution. There is different pathways for different customers at different times. So what's the difference between an IMS and a WMS? Unfortunately, it's not an easy answer to give. It really has morphed over the years. The ability and capabilities of an IMS, or inventory management system, has changed over the years. It used to be a very clear-cut line, but these days the added capabilities and functionalities in an IMS have grown to become much closer to a WMS. However, there are still some key differences between the two. And in a nutshell, what we found is that a WMS, a dedicated WMS, provides you with a more granular control over your warehouse operations. An inventory management system is great to understand your inventory levels, where your inventory lies, and give you all the reports and insights into your inventory. But a WMS gives you that control over your day-to-day operations. It can assist you with the receiving process. It can help you create clever bin allocations, product slotting, create your tasks, group your tasks together to get that additional efficiency out of your pickers and the other resources that you have in your warehouse. It can have label printing, directed assisted picking in there, it can have directed and assisted QC and packing. And I can only imagine there's a bunch of other elements that outlines the difference a bit more. But in a nutshell, a WMS gives you that granular control of your operations. So if your business is at the point where you can no longer get the control or the visibility in your operations that you need to get that extra efficiency, it is the point for you to start the transitioning process. So what should you be looking out for in a decent warehouse management system? Now, again, as I just mentioned, is that line has blurred, and there's different software solutions available in the market from different suppliers, and they all offer different elements to different levels of complexity. And it all essentially stems from where that company that supplies this WMS functionality, where they stem from. Is it services? Is it goods? Was it written by IT? Was it written by operations? There's different elements, and it's important to understand what the key functionality in each of them are, the differences, and then to have this wish list of elements essentially that you would like to have in your operation. And if you have this wish list, you can then evaluate the different WMS solutions that's available in the market and tick off from your wish list and the ones that satisfy your needs, and then also then be in a position where you can then make a decision and say, listen, okay, but I'm willing to let this functionality go. I'm willing to compromise on this functionality because of this and that and so forth. But it's important to have this list in front of you whilst you're evaluating your processes and your future WMS system. Of course, this presentation will be available for everyone on this webinar to review afterwards. But that brings me to the end of my session. I hope I haven't gone over time, MJ. Thank you.
Thank you, Cobus. No, you've actually been very good. So you're spot on. I really appreciate it. And I think thank you firstly for punting us quite profusely there. I really appreciate it. But we are all Excel warriors at one point or another in our career, especially when you're designing a business or building a business. It's finding that right point. And I think Pierre and Jaco's conversation would also add a lot of value to where that point is and when that growth point comes along. Pierre, I'm going to leave it over to you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we can all see that. Perfect.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, you can. Okay, great. Thanks, MJ, and thanks, Cobus. Very well said. All right, going to jump in here. We'll start off with the agenda, intro, who we are as Fiskal, what we do, and what we are about. Then we'll talk about an ecosystem and factors to consider when designing your ecosystem. And thirdly, what are some of the main issues we encounter when clients implement inventory management systems? And then finally, Jaco will run through 4 business cases or examples to make things just a slightly bit more practical. Cool. So about Fiskal, Fiskal was founded in 2017 in Stellenbosch, the PTY leg. Fiskal Inc., the USA leg, was founded in 2020. I think Cobus also mentioned some COVID innovation. That was the same case with us. And our vision is financial security and longevity for our clients and team members. And the reason for this is we believe once those buckets are filled and financial security gains prominence, people start engaging in philanthropic activities and essentially just become better people. And we believe this is how we can make a lasting impact. How we do this is very straightforward. There are 2 pillars: business systems and financial management. We implement the very best software and tools for our clients, and we use these tools to provide us and hopefully them with timely, accurate financial information ready for decision making. All right, so building the ecosystem. What you see here is an example of an ecosystem for a small and medium-sized business. Okay, most of the audience perhaps will be more familiar with the terminology of an ERP, while this is essentially a disassembled ERP for a small and medium-sized business. Okay, most, if not all, small businesses does not have the budget for a custom-written software, and they can cost you anything probably north of $100,000. So in the small business world, these third-party softwares are integrated via APIs. And what we essentially do is, well, we firstly design them and then secondly monitor the data flow from the one to the other. So I hope that makes sense. So then some complexity, some factors to consider when selecting software. The first one is complexity. Jaco will touch a bit more on this later, but you need to ensure you understand where the transition point is to move from one tool to the other. Cobus also touched on that. I think it's a very relative topic for this discussion, and I hope Jaco can provide a bit more on that. Scalability. It's really important to understand how the investment now will look into the future. How long will this setup be viable for? And again, where's the transition point Okay, efficiency. The last thing you want is to move away from your legacy software because you heard about this new shiny thing around the braai fire. All right, so if you are receiving your data, the data you need to make informed decisions efficiently, stick with it. Okay, or if you do decide to make the move, ensure you understand what efficiencies will be created for you and your team. Okay, integrations, again, seeing that this isn't a one system like with an ERP, ensure that the tools you select integrate with each other. Most have native integrations, which does a lot of the heavy lifting, and one should definitely be leveraging this. Cost, for any small business, this is probably the most important factor. So understanding the investment and hopefully the return on it is crucial. Ensure also you understand the full implementation cost, the running cost, and also the consultant who's probably going to assist you's cost. So make sure all of those are taken into account. And then finally, financial oversight and data. In my mind, you're either implementing these tool or a tool to either create efficiencies or to receive better data to make informed decisions. So make sure when these are implemented that they are accurate. And then some of the findings, some of the problems that we encounter are with inventory management system and inventory modules rather. So I'm not going to run through the specific inventory modules and inventory management systems, but I would rather like to highlight some pain points we encounter when these are implemented. Okay, so first one is a lack of understanding. Normally, due to the day-to-day users aren't involved in the decision, so when the change comes, they are out of the loop. Informing them and helping them understand the reason for change is critical. I spoke about change management. I think Kobus spoke about it as well. Change management means you need to manage the change, right? Ensuring that there's sufficient support and check-ins. We find that appointing a champion or someone that is accountable for the project is normally the way to go. Then setup, Kobus touched on this as well. I cannot tell you how many times we get contacted by clients who try to implement these systems themselves and did not have the required skill set. And at the end of the day, it's not just about them wasting their time, but I think it's rather about the true value of the system is not being unlocked. So I think it's very critical that you find someone that really understands the A to Z of it. SOPs, we find that users have a lack of SOPs written to refer to and to guide them. If you think about it, each business actually has a very limited amount of unique processes that they need to follow. So if you've got that well defined and well written out, I think, yeah, it does a lot of the heavy lifting. So make sure that is well defined. And then finally, time. We find that most clients underestimate the amount of time that it takes for these systems to be implemented and adopted by their team members. So really make sure that patience is built into the proposal, because from my experience, it can take anything from a year to two to really get the team immersed into these. Right, Yaku, you can run us through some practical examples that we find.
Perfect. Pierre, thank you so much for that introduction and Kobus, the background so far. I've got the privilege of presenting some software journeys and the hope of making this all more practical for everyone. So I think the first journey that I would like to discuss is, let's call him the ambitious yeast salesman. Key quote from our customer was, "We sell all our products in about 2 months of the year and we need to be ready." So this client imports about 10 strains of organic yeast, and they sell to wine farms predominantly. And the key is their yeast needs to be added during the harvest period. And as you would know, harvest time is usually within 2 months of the year, between January and some February. And the client needs to know exactly what their product availability is so that they don't oversell or have a key customer fulfillment issue at a point in time. And they also needed accurate planning for their margin analysis. They have to pre-order their stock. They have to be very careful with what the actual landed cost is so that they can correctly price the inventory for harvest time in the next year. So for this client, going through their journey, we used in the end the inventory module within Xero, a Xero Premium, and that gave them the insights that they needed, and that's been going strong for 2 to 3 years now, and the need has not come about to move to something different yet. Next example I'll move on to is, let's call them the burger joint. The key quote from the client in this conversation is, I want to open a store every quarter, and our model does not accommodate a queue. Very interesting problem. The complexity faced here is the size for the setup is very limited seating space, limited ordering space. There was only space for about 2 to 3 people standing in a queue. So for them, the key requirement was an efficient ordering and payments process. And with that, in their list of requirements was accurate bill of materials, so that they have accurate menu costings and keep an eye on what their margins are on their menu. And because they're planning on scaling, they needed a way of growing that process and monitoring it on multiple locations. So in this journey pre-planned, we suggested a mix of starting with Lightspeed point of sales, which dealt with ordering, payment collecting, kitchen management, bill of materials, and accurate costings and reporting for them. As Pierre mentioned as well, well-defined standard operating procedures so that could be rolled out to multiple locations. From an accounting point, we used Xero, but the standard package, but designed the information flow between the systems to optimize the tracking per location that is being opened. And we added a BI tool, Spotlight reporting, so that on a monthly basis, the key KPIs could be reported to the relevant management team. Well, next up, let's talk about the growth omni-channel. Quote from the customer: we're planning double-digit growth every year, and we need something that can handle it. This was an interesting customer. When they arrived at our doorstep, there were about 9 retail locations, or they were just opening their 9th location, and they just started their online e-commerce platform. And key issue that they've experienced at this point in time was real-time inventory availability. They kept on overselling products online, or products being shown as not available, but they actually were available, then losing sales. And they needed something that could match their headquarters product availability with their stock availability within stores, and auto calculate what the product availability is online. Some other wish list items were a method of costing for inventory landed cost that uses the sizing of the products. Also, they had to be very accurate with inventory replenishments. As you know, with growing businesses, growth costs cash. So working capital pressure, so they needed to be spot on with inventory replenishment and not invest in stock that's not moving. And as we discussed, the website integration with the inventory management system. And at a later stage, as Kobus mentioned, we had to add modules for warehouse management systems. In this software journey, the proposal was Shopify for front-end online sales, moving the retail stores to SIN7 points of sales, and that is integrated into an inventory management system, SIN7 Core. and that manages the stock availability, ordering, receiving, all those functions, which reported back into a zero premium from an accounting point of view. And a BI tool, Spotlight reporting, was added on top of that as well, so that we could track key KPIs per location, key leading measures that the management team needed. At a later stage, as growth continued and they moved into different spaces, I think Kobus mentioned this, a warehouse management system, which is the SIN7 WMS function, was added on, and we had to look at the integration with RFID tags. Perfect. And if I move to the last example, let's call it the mature e-commerce older brother business. The customer's key quote was, "I just need some real insights into my business. For example, is our free gift cards actually increasing our client retention?" Now, part of their wish list was their multinational operations in different jurisdictions. They had key issues with cross-border payment collections, so the solutions had to be able to handle that. And then the big project was their BI analytics platform, because they're very interested in analytics, had to integrate with their accounting function. It had to integrate with their fulfillment partners and their inventory management systems. In this scenario, the software that was recommended was Shopify Plus as a front end for sales. From a sales process point of view, we actually went with a SIN7 core iteration per location, and the same for the accounting function was a 0 per location, because there's jurisdictional reporting requirements for sales tax and income tax and these things. And then that, on top of that, bolted on was the Domo business analytics platform. Now, I would say, just to illustrate the software journey, is when we started this process in 2018, 53,000 orders went through the system. And year to date for 2023, they're actually looking at 171,000 orders through that system. And I think the key item we would like to highlight was not the growth that it could handle, but the key interventions that the analytics brought about. There's been projects that have been able to increase the average order value 12% over the last 2 years, and they've been able to increase their repeating customers from, I think it was sitting at 30% up to 35% in 2023. So hopefully that gives you some oversight and some practical examples for software journeys. And if there's anything that resonated, we'll discuss it in the Q&A. Over to you, MJ.
Thank you, Pierre, as well as Jaco. Jaco, when you go for a site visit at that wine guy, I'm happy to join you. But I like the conversation around complexity, and as well as about the change and knowing your business. I think when you're designing a warehouse, or when you're designing a software solution or a suite of solutions, it is critical to understand the processes that go into them and how they work. And that's when you get huge efficiencies if you continue to use them. But it's not all up to me. The next presenter is CP from Strategico. CP, if you want to, there we go. Great stuff. Thank you very much. If we can see that, you're just on mute at the moment.
There we go.
Great stuff.
Thanks for the opportunity, MJ, Kobus. It's great to be part of this, and to Pierre and Jaco as well. Very interesting presentation. I don't know if the audience know that, you know, we haven't seen each other's presentations before this, and it was very interesting to follow that. And I think, you know, a lot of synergies, and hopefully good discussions between us as the presenters as well after this. So I'm going to present a system called Bob Cloud Inventory, which is a proudly South African warehouse management. We call it a warehouse management system, but as we've explained now, you know, in the previous conversations as well, the lines are a bit grey between IMS and warehouse management, and hopefully from this presentation it will come out, exactly where Bob sits in the market. But Bob was developed by Strategico, and it's a proudly South African product, so I'm quite excited to tell you about it. So what we're going to look at first is just where Bob comes from. Most of the good things that come out in this world comes from solving problems. So we feel that this is where Bob comes from. So I'm going to explain that a little bit. And then I'm going to give you more information about what Bob really is, the product overview. And then, we'll go over to the question and answer section at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'll jump into my presentation. So we're saying, a lot of people have problems, and in Strategico, we see problems as opportunities. So when we started off Strategico, we started about 2007, and we focused mainly on working with large enterprises, blue chip companies, multinationals, specifically around the enterprise mobility and inventory management areas. So our focus was, we partnered with a USA-based software vendor. We still to this day partner with them, an implementation partner. But we found that these systems that typically operate in these type of companies are very overspec'd, first of all. Yes, there are companies that do need all of those functionality, but a lot of the companies, and we're using the 80-20 principle here, 80% of the companies only use 20% of that functionality. So when we picked up on that, and also with the way that the rand devalued over time and having to pay US dollar-based licensing fees, we identified an area in the market where we can develop something that focuses on the less complex warehouse management functionalities, and also be priced at something that can really be, affordable in the South African market. And that's where Bob came from. So Bob is short for barcodes out of a box. So the philosophy that we took was that it should be a very simple product. It should be easy to implement. Basically, the idea is to have a box shipped to a customer with a label printer, with scanners, maybe a printing, let's call it a computer, but a server in there. And they could literally open the box, set it up, and start scanning immediately. So that's the vision we had, and we try to stay true to that vision, as we've gone up through this journey. Now, today, we're saying up and away. The response to Bob has been immense. We can only be, thankful for what we've achieved so far and the market feedback that we're getting. And we've actually, where we identified originally the market to be small, maybe medium customers, we've already started implementing into quite large South African enterprises, and just going from strength to strength. So that's a little bit of the history about Bob. So what is Bob? Like I said, Bob is there to solve problems. Now, Bob is not your typical warehouse management system. So as I said previously, our history was founded a lot in what we called enterprise mobility. So the focus that we had was more on workflow and automation of that workflow. So taking processes in a business and taking away the paperwork, taking in the duplicate data capturing, taking away manual data entry and all those kind of things. So that's the way Bob started, and what the focus was. Now, from this, that's the platform that Bob was built on. But from this, we then developed basic standard solutions that can be rolled out into any company where that solution or that workflow fits the company. So typically, AWMS is one of the products that we've developed. So if we look at, we call it Bob Cloud Inventory. And again, it's because, we don't want to, it is a warehouse management system, but it focuses on the basics of basic warehouse management principles. So if we look at the different areas, our inbound receiving processes, our internal processes inside the warehouse, and our outbound dispatch processes, these are the main things that we look at in Bob from a warehouse management perspective. So there is label printing. You can receive stock into the system. You can also receive stock against purchase orders and verify that your purchase orders and the stock that you're receiving against it is matching and accurate. In the internal processes, we're looking at, we do have suggested put away. So, you can classify your areas in the warehouse, your products, and where certain products must go, fast moving, hazardous, whatever the classification that you need, that is all there. Cycle counting, that's part of the solution. And then obviously bin transfers in the warehouse to keep your housekeeping going. And then on the outbound side, we've got the guided picking as a feature. We've got pick, pack, and ship verification. So this can be a little bit customized as well. So some customers don't want to do the packing part. Whatever is picked must be shipped. But we do have that verification of that entire process to ensure that what you are picking is what is actually going out on the shipment at the end of the day, and it matches your order. So the sales order verification is also making sure that what was on the sales order or the invoice is actually the items that are being shipped at the end of the day. So it's not all of the features, but those are the main features that I see as part of a basic warehouse management system, and that's part of the Bob warehouse management solution. So just taking that a little bit further, if we look at Bob Cloud Inventory in the middle, we've just looked at the features there. Some of the other features that are also part of our landscape in the Bob environment, there's custom automation. So we can do almost any process that forms part of your business and your inventory management, or even outside of inventory management. We can build that process into Bob for you to automate that as well. This is because of the architecture that we used called object-oriented programming. A little bit more on that just after this. We also have raw material management. We've got manufacturing modules. We've got EPOD, or electronic proof of delivery. And then one of the features that I'm specifically proud of is the distribution optimization part. And I feel this is something that really adds value, and that I haven't come across any other systems within this space really offering. So a little bit more on that. What we do is, we are Strategico. We're also franchise owners for the South African market of a tool called LogUp. This is a supply chain app and optimization tool. A phenomenal platform. One of the key features of that tool is the milk run optimization. And what we've done with Bob is we've actually integrated the Bob platform into the LogUp API for milk run optimization. So if you have your orders that need to go out on a daily basis, or whatever the period is that you want to look at, let's call it a daily basis. Simply by the click of a button from Bob, we can send the orders that need to be picked based on the pick slips that are generated to the LogUp platform. LogUp will optimize that for us and put it into an optimal distribution plan. So a transport plan, basically. Feed that back into Bob, and you've got all that information there, and you know that you are actually, doing your distribution as optimal as possible. Now, normally this would sit in the outside sort of solution. These things are very costly. And on our side, this is part of the Bob subscription. Bob obviously being a SaaS subscription pricing model. This is included. So we've seen significant savings for customers using this, 10% plus savings on distribution, just by having this solution or this functionality available to look at their outgoing orders. Okay, so like I said earlier, object-oriented programming. This slide is what I try to, a lot of people these days know actually what object-oriented programming is, but this is sort of to try and show what the value of this is, of products built on OOP. So if you look at the house on the left-hand side, this is a house built to specific specification. It looks great. You know, it's exactly what the client wanted. And the one on the right-hand side, that shows OOP for me. So again, there's a lot of features. It's exactly what the client wants. Looks great. Now something changes in the business, and this is related to a customer maybe wanting to move a window in the house to a different wall. If you look at the one on the left-hand side, to move that wall, you'll have to basically break down the whole thing, tear it apart, and rebuild it to get what you want. Whereas if you have a Lego-based thing, it's blocks that you move around. So you can take the blocks out, move it to the other side, move the door this side, and it's quite easy. So object-oriented programming is like the Lego house. The way Bob is built, we've got all these small little blocks that make up your workflow. And if one customer wants to scan the location and then the item, he can do it. If the next customer wants it the other way around, it's easy for us to change because those objects exist within the program. And just like that, we can add other different processes or workflows that you might have to the Bob platform to look after your processes in your business. So looking at our integration, as Bob has grown, we've started integrating into different platforms as well. We're an official ISV with Sage. We've taken that route because we specifically want to focus on the South African market to start with, and we have a lot of Sage customers, but we also do integration into Xero, QuickBooks. We've got a customer, we've actually signed a second customer now that uses SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards. So we do have experience from our history working with very large corporates, working with these kind of ERPs. And I think one of our sweet spots is really the ability of our resources, our technical team to do the integration into these kind of systems. And that adds a lot of value as well. Okay, so that is the overview of Bob. I hope you found that interesting, and I'll hand over to MJ, and hopefully there's some questions coming out.
Right. Thank you, CP. Really appreciate that. Agility, or the ability to continue to change. I love it. It's coming through every presentation we've got today, from Kobus to Fiskal to yourself. It's about understanding your process, optimizing that process, and being agile enough to actually switch on and off. The Log Hub, we've used the software, it is phenomenal. The ability of switching that on and maybe even testing that. But we've got a few questions. So if we can start with the first one, to Fiskal Finance. How has your typical IMS system been evolving in the last few years, and where do you see it going in the future, considering factors such as functionality and technology platform? Pierre, you want to grab that one?
Yeah, 100%. Good question. I think it's a two parts. I'll start with the first part, which is how has it been evolving the past few years. Interesting enough, well, probably not interesting enough, but a lot of private equity has actually come to the party in this space. So I can just give you two examples. Gear Systems and Unleashed, which is two of the major players, actually both founded at the Pacific, so one in Australia and one in New Zealand. Not 100% sure what's in the water there, but there's amazing software is being implemented on that side of the world. Both of them have been acquired. So Gear Systems have been acquired by Sin7, and that's the rebrand to Sin7 Core. And Unleashed has been acquired by Access Group, which is a UK private equity firm. So to answer that question, I think it's evolving. People are investing. You know, it's a fluid market with a lot of potential. And where do I see it going? I think we will continue seeing investment being flown, and hopefully for products like Bob itself, because I mean, something like Sin7 Core continuously invest in their modules, from the advanced manufacturing modules straight through the warehouse management system, automations, MRP modules. That's all being built out. Point of sale. So this money is just making the modules, in my opinion, essentially better.
So we're talking about hyper evolution.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And I think just one good insight as well, what I've heard, and I think what will continue to happen is the lesser known focused inventory suppliers like your Shopify's or your Zeros, they will start investing into their modules as well. Okay, so I've heard rumors that Zero is gonna revamp their Zero, their inventory module. As you'd know, well, most of you would probably know, the inventory module isn't up to standard or very, very basic and minimal. So I think as they look for new market share, they will start investing into these modules to ensure that they continue essentially growing.
Cool, thank you very much. I've got a question here for CP. What is the typical integration timeline for a small to medium-sized enterprise for your software? And is there an ERP system that you more often interface to? I think you've answered the second part with the comment about Sage, but a typical integration, and I think we'll flip that to Pierre afterwards as well. What is it? What do you guys see? And I just want to underpin that with part of what we talked about, understanding your processes, but also going through this with a good solid change management behind it. All right, CP, I haven't taken half the question away.
Yeah, no, you can answer it for me as well if you want to. So, I mean, how long as a piece of rope, really. But if we look at the Sage landscape, if we take out standard processes, they are standard plugins, so the integration is done. It's a switch of a flip of a switch, sorry, and it works. So, but we find that most customers do want some changes to those processes. We find very often, you know, the processes are slightly different from customer to customer. However, we do have the internal resources and technical guys to do that. So to answer the question, I would say typically if we look at something like a Sage Evo 200, if we have to do customization, we look at 2 weeks and it's done.
Wow.
If we work with something like a SAP, then shortest timeline is probably 3 months, again, depending on how many of the processes you want to integrate with. We're now busy with a project where we've been busy with the integration for 8 months. The UAT started today, and I'm sort of supposed to be part of that. So I'm going to rush that. Yes, so it depends. But the small businesses that doesn't have SAP, if you're looking at Sage Zero, Sage One, QuickBooks, those kind of things, 2 weeks to a month, and it should be done.
Super. And that I take it is based on the fact that you've already done all the functional design work and understand the processes. It's not a upfront process, although it's maybe core 80% already there, that 20% that you jig.
Exactly that, yes.
Pierre, Jaco, your views on that one? From an integration perspective?
I think on the timeline question.
Yes.
Right.
So, I mean, you talked about almost putting a little bit of a best to breed together, and that integration and monitoring that integration elements of the systems. And is that is that a quick process, or what is the approach maybe also that you take around this one?
Cool. I mean, as I mentioned in the presentation, I think most of the tools in the SMB space actually has made it pretty easy for the users, that they've essentially developed native of them is very straightforward and very simple. There's a few configurations that you need to switch between to decide how you want the information to flow. So in our case, it's very, very, very simple to switch that on. So I mean, if you know what you're doing, it could be an hour to 2, depending on the customers or clients' need.
So what we're saying is, if the customer sticks to a vanilla kind of implementation, it's quick. It's when we get creative that we get worried.
correct.
100%. All right. Here's a question to both parties. At what point in a company's growth path do they need to start considering switching from an IMS to a WMS? All right, Yaku, you haven't said anything. I'm going to give that one to you first. You're on mute.
Perfect.
There we
Thank
go.
you, MJ. Perfect. I think the question, and I hope this came through in the presentation. It's not necessarily growth. That's the questionability. It's the complexity around what you need from the system that really drives the question of moving from inventory management to warehouse management, and that complexity that your operation has and your growth plans have, and what that brings to the table. And that's why it's a personalized per company specific question. It's in the case of, let's call it our software journey number 3, it's really when you actually had or started using proper warehouse, or your staff contingent grew to a point that you needed to efficiently operate a warehouse, that you needed to add a warehouse management system to drive out those efficiencies. And if the business was operating in a manner where it was just volume, growth is not the driving factor. It's as you add on more complexities to the system that I would say you need to reconsider the software that you're using, and whether it's still suitable for what this next phase of complexity is that you're introducing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody could say it better. That's perfect. Yeah, I'm not even going to ask you, but I am going to ask you to. We're just running out low on time. If you were to leave anything with our viewers today, one piece of thing, what would that be?
Thanks for that one, Michael.
It's a pleasure. You were talking about complexities.
I think that's exactly it. Yaku has summed it up perfectly. Don't look, into what the size of the company is. That has actually got nothing to do with it, but your processes and your complexity of your processes. That's the determining factor. And make sure that things do look simple from the outside. Make sure you get the opinion of experts like the guys at Fiskal. I think they've got a phenomenal offering. Yeah, and Relog. I mean, obviously, but it depends on where your space is and what you want out of it. But what Fiskal puts together is that the knowledge of putting all those things together to make the processes work together and the systems work together. And I think that's lacking outside. I think that's a brilliant solution. So my key thought is, think about your complexity of your business and get an expert opinion on what will best solve that problem for you.
Super. I'm going to go to Kobus. He's been very quiet and he's switched off his camera, so we'll put him back in.
I've been off, yeah.
And if you were to leave something, and just punt us as you go, don't worry about that. But if you were to leave something with our viewers, what is the small key crumb? And I can see Pierre is already thinking what he's going to say. He's looking up. I'm going to come to you next. Kobus?
I would say clear and accurate data. That's where we've hit our snags a few times in the past, and it's created many frustrating days and evenings. But yeah, I think when you have a good system implemented, it will allow you to capture your data in a clear and concise way. And being able to access your data, I think clients will themselves be able to understand the benefits of having quality data to work with, which will then allow us later on in the journey, when we need to get involved, also to access good quality data.
Super. Thanks, Kobus. Pierre, now you've had time to ponder that one.
Mine is very simple. I think it was Kobus's theme of his presentation. That's just really to get that advice at the start, up front, and do it right up front, because you're just gonna work your way into headache at a later stage. So try and to get that initial setup, and yeah, hopefully the value will flow after.
Thank you. Yaku, we can't leave without you having a say.
I would think about what I reiterated, what I already said, is just think about what complexity is going to be introduced in your business at what point in time, and that drives the software journey.
Super. Guys, firstly, thank you very much. I really appreciate today. And if I can add my 2 cents, if I listen to all of you, it's about just, you have to go slow to go fast. Slow down before you jump in, understand your business, spend the time to it, and, you know, make the decisions when they're the right decisions. It's about understanding your business. And I think if that's coming from financial people, software people, construction, design people, everybody is saying the same thing. It's good change management. It's spending some good time involving in it, making the decisions, and you'll be setting a foundation for the future. So on that note, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, your effort, and to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. Next time we'll have it back in the morning, and CP, if you join us, you're going to have to get up at 2:30 in the morning, unfortunately. But thank you very much. Really appreciate it, guys. Take care and have a wonderful evening and a festive season.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.